My name is William Fernholm. My age I'm 86 years old, and I'm doing this as a gift for my grandchildren, who I seldom ever see, and I don't think they know much about me. So I hope this works out well. I was born in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, in 1929. My father was an immigrant from Norway, and my mother was a American citizen with quite a interesting family history. She was qualified to be a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. She had a sister that had participated in that for many years. My mother never bothered to join up, but she had quite an interesting family. As I said, I was born in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and then for about the first 4 years of my life, we lived in a little town called Stoughton, Wisconsin. My father was a salesman for a company that worked there in Stoughton. I started kindergarten there, and then we had moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We lived in the city of Minneapolis itself, and later on we moved out to the country at Medicine Lake, out 10 miles west of Minneapolis, which was an old family home that my grandfather, grandmother, and my dad's family had lived in years before. So I actually grew up. All my formative years were at Medicine Lake area. I attended a one-room school there. They had first to eighth grade all in one room. We initially had just one teacher, a man that was our teacher. And last year or so I was there, they also hired a woman teacher, and she taught the first and second grade children. And I graduated from eighth grade. I went to high school in Wayzata, Minnesota, and I had a hard time there. All of us did that came from District 95 with me, because we really didn't have much of the background in mathematics and things that these other students had. So I was never very happy with high school. I never liked it. I had quit school by this time. I had just gotten tired of high school. The war was on, World War II, and I felt that it was rather futile to sit there and trying to learn algebra when all the fighting was going on around the world. So I had intentions of being a hero, and I went down to enlist in the Marine Corps. And I was only 15 at the time, and you had to have your parents. 17 was a minimum age, but you had to have your parents' signature to get in, and I had gotten a local bum that I'd met on the street, and he came in. He signed for me. He said he was my father. They accepted me, put me on a train, sent me out to San Diego to boot camp, and I was just getting indoctrinated there. I'd been there about 4 or 5 days, maybe a week, and I got an order, told I was supposed to see the company commander. I was terrified. I didn't know what I could have done. Anyway, I went to see as it turned out, the Red Cross was after me. My mother had found out where I went. She told the Red Cross. They came and got me. And so the Marine Corps dumped me like a hot rock and sent me back to Minneapolis. My first jobs that I had was I drove trucks for a couple of local guys hauling cordwood, pulpwood, and things like that. And then I had a job for about 9 months. I drove the local garbage truck. so, so I was a garbage man for almost a year. And I then hired out on the railroad. I was working for the Minneapolis Northfield and Southern Railroad as a apprentice fireman. I worked there for not a year, less than a year, and I had made a couple trips on the road as a fireman. Mostly, I just did work around the roundhouse and things like that. But we had two locomotives for the Northfield and Southern that were tied up at the Sioux Line roundhouse in Minneapolis. And I had gone over there and found that the Sioux Line at that time was hiring firemen, it was a much bigger railroad, a much better, which I thought would be a much better career. So I hired out for the Sioux Line. I quit the MN&S and hired out as a fireman on the Sioux Line. And at that time, I got my friend Robert and Norman Bowman, who they had been discharged from the service by this time, and told them about the job. They came down. They were hired, so all three of us were student firemen on a Sioux Line Railroad. One thing I'd like to mention that that's a job that doesn't exist anymore. I was shoveling coal and steam locomotives. That's all we had on the road was steam locomotives. So I am very proud to have done that. There are very few people you're going to encounter today that have ever had that experience, and it was a lifelong dream. As a little boy, I always loved trains and so forth. I finally got my dreams came true, if you will. So I joined the Navy in the end of 1947, winter of 47-48. Went to boot camp at Great Lakes, Illinois, and I did well on the IQ test that they give you when the recruiters sign you up, and so I was qualified for submarine school, which I was something that I'd been kind of interested in. And so I volunteered for submarine school. And after boot camp, I was sent to New London, Connecticut to submarine school and submarine training. And then my first submarine that I served on was the USS Perch, which was a submarine transport. It had been converted to haul Marine raiders, and we could carry a whole company of Marines. They had removed the torpedo tubes from the 4 torpedo rooms and made that a big bunk area. They'd have taken the engines out of there's 2 engine rooms on a diesel submarine, and out of the forward engine room they removed the engines and made that a bunk room for Marines, and that's how we were able to carry almost 100 Marines. The Perch was equipped with a snorkel, which is, a matter of fact, I believe we might have been the first boat in the Pacific Fleet that had one, which is an underwater breathing device which allows you to run your diesel engines while you're submerged, as opposed to running on batteries, which is a normal procedure. Your battery propulsion is only good for about 18 hours, but you could run. We stayed submerged and traveled snorkeling for 30 days. We set a record in the Pacific at that time. So the Perch was an interesting boat to be on, and I was on there for I guess close to 2 years, and then I got transferred to by this time the Korean War broke out, and the Perch didn't have any torpedo tubes or anything, so I wanted to be a war fighter, so I transferred to another submarine in the squadron, the USS Blower, and which was scheduled to transfer to the Atlantic Ocean, and it was going to be turned over to I didn't know it at the time, but the plan was to totally overhaul this boat and turn it over to the Turkish government. So when we got over to the Atlantic side, we went to a complete overhaul of the boat in the Philadelphia Navy Yard. And at that time, we started being introduced to some of our Turkish counterparts who were going to take over the boat. And we worked with them for almost about a year, total, I guess, from the time we finished our overhaul to training purposes and so forth. It was quite interesting working with the Turkish Navy. We got to be good friends with some of them. While I was on the Trigger, I had met my first wife, Virginia. Her name was Virginia Lewis. She was a native of New London, Connecticut. And of course, she was the mother of my children, Eric, and later was Nancy. While I was serving on the Trigger, Eric was born at that time. At that time, there were a couple other boats that were just under construction because the program was mushrooming rapidly. But there was only one nuclear boat operating, and that was number one, the Nautalis. It had been operating for, by this time, about 2 years when I got on there. When I arrived on the Nautilus, they were changing the first core that they had in the nuclear reactor. They were just removing that, putting in a new fuel system and so forth. And this was in 1956. I was on the Nautilus from 1956 to 1960. In 1957, we made a trip to the Arctic with the idea of getting to the North Pole. We had a malfunction with our electric propulsion for the and some circuit breakers for our gyro compass and stuff. We lost power to them.
Tough shape.
So we were in tough shape. Of course, we were underneath the ice. And after a couple of days, we finally determined that we better try and surface again, see what. So we punched a hole, come up through some very thin ice. And then they broke out the sextant and took some sun shots and established our position. We were somewhere over Hudson Bay. We had missed the whole Atlantic Ocean, but from then on we were okay. We knew where we were.